Hey everyone, it's Classic DM, and we have a really robust episode for you here today. Video that's going to cover the Fall of Plaguestone, and we're also going to talk about the flip maps and ways that you can amplify this adventure for you and your friends playing by drawing some of your own maps. And I'm going to share with you some of the techniques that I actually use to make my own battle maps at the end of the video. And at the very, very end, we'll actually draw one little boss rooms live, and we'll talk about how to detail out maps and add more detail than in the original adventure. But before we get started, let's do a review of actual Fall of Plaguestone itself, because if you have thought about buying it or thought about playing it, this will give you a sneak peek about what it's all about and what's about it that's cool, what's interesting, things like that. So just to give you a quick overview one more time. So we're going to do kind of a fast map drawing episode at the very end. We're going to draw Halid's Ambush, which is at the bottom of the list here. The first thing we're going to do in the first 3 or 4 minutes here is give you a review of the module or the adventure, however you want to call it. We're going to talk about the different maps that are inside the adventure. We're going to talk about the available flip map that you can get. We're going to talk about my battle map board system that I use, which you may like. You may want to take it and permutate it and put your own personal twist on it. We'll talk about drawing surfaces, line weights, chisel point techniques that I use to draw really quick, loose, dirty, fast, architectural style battle maps. Even if you pick up like one drawing technique, your freehand drawing on your own dry erase or wet erase battle map sheet will just improve tremendously. And at the very end, we're going to actually design out the Halid's Ambush beyond the detail that's actually provided in the adventure. We're not going to change anything. We're just going to add more subtle level designer kind of game industry details that may make it a lot more fun for you to play with your friends. All right, let's just go ahead and get started here. So let's just go ahead and talk about the Fall of Plaguestone in and of itself. I'm not the kind of guy who likes to run around making a review and unboxing things and stuff like that. There's a lot of people that do that, and I'm so glad there are people that do, because it gives you a sense of what the product is like before you buy it. So before we go much further, I'm going to switch over to the camera and just show you the module. I'm not going to tell you the story, so I'm not going to put any spoilers in there. I'm just going to give you a quick little overview of what's inside, what's strong about it, and tell you what I think about it, kind of coming from that old school AD&D perspective, going way back to the Village of Hamlet and the Temple of Elemental Evil, and how this very first adventure, its theme and gameplay style is very different than some of the gameplay styles you may have found in other introductory adventures when you got introduced to D&D and other games, no matter which edition you got into. So before we get any further, let's just go ahead and jump over here to the overhead view, and we'll just put this one down for the time being. And let me just get your attention over here for a little bit, okay? So this is the hard copy of it. It's always nicer to have a hard copy to talk about things. I like to have hard copies in PDFs for various reasons, but the cover art's fantastic. That's great. Not a huge fan of the logo font, but that doesn't really matter. So it's a pretty thick, robust, splat book type adventure. It's about 63, 64 pages. As soon as you open up, you're going to see there's maps of like the final boss location. So right away, you're going to see that, wow, there's going to be this keep with like 6 or 7, 8, 9 rooms and a tower. Kind of reminds you of the moat house from the Village of Hamlet. And you can see there's little adventures and dungeons, there's variety, and the map's very colorful, and they have kind of a particular style to them, which may be different than you're used to seeing in other games. The adventure itself is very story driven. So it talks a whole backstory. So if you're the kind of person who likes narrative, you like your adventures to have mystery, you like things like The Name of the Rose, or you like Netflix murder mysteries or mine hunters or whatever, you like something where like there's a village and there's some kind of trouble and it's a Solomon Kane kind of vibe, and you and your adventurers are going to arrive, and there's this underlying evil connecting everything together as a subtext, and along the way you're going to discover what's happening. You're going to meet lots of characters and stuff. That's what this adventure is like. There's trouble happening in Plaguestone. The Plaguestone is actually a problem of itself, and you're ultimately going to defeat the villain at the end. So it's really centered around this community. It's kind of a farming community. So with that in mind, you have this kind of Sleepy Hollow film kind of vibe, where you have this a murder mystery to resolve in Chapter 1. There's all kinds of enemies you meet along the way. Some of the introductory conflicts happen in exterior locations when you're riding in a caravan and stuff like that. So it's a level 1 adventure, okay? So it's not like this going into the steading hill giant chief and slaying giants. As we all seen so far, the enemies in Pathfinder are much harder than they were in any other previous version of D&D, no matter which OGL D20 version you're using. So the adventure is really more about using your mind as a player. So from that perspective, it's a really, really good adventure to run someone who's never, ever, ever played D&D before, because the emphasis isn't on character power and the right kind of build for the fighter and reactions for shields and all this kind of stuff. It's more about talking to characters, figuring out what the human story is. It's a very human story kind of a module. That may not be your thing. You may not like that kind of stuff. I think it's good for introductory module for someone who's never played before, who likes film. If you like film, you like drama, you like detective mysteries where they go around talking to people, and you're the kind of person that says, "That dude's lying, man. I can tell he's lying." That's that kind of a vibe to the introduction, all the characters. As a game master or a dungeon master, you're going to be able to utilize all those characters to kind of guide the players down this connecting series of dots. So it's like the film Seven, right? If you're watching the film, it's a linear experience, and everything happens with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman trying to ultimately find Kevin Spacey at the end, right? So all this stuff begins the beginning, middle, and denouement and end. So unlike like a book, this is really kind of laid out like an adventure. But what actually happens, and where the fight scenes happen, and where the drama actually happens, and what you discover when and what order, that's flexible. So there's a little bit of flexibility here, and that's always the case in any kind of adventure game. But it is pretty much a beginning, middle, and end story. So there's a problem, you're going to go figure out what the problem is. You're going to play action, you'll play your agency, you're going to resolve the problem, there's resolution. So along the way, how you do that is very flexible. There's a number of what I would call one-shotty, not one-shot Roddy, but one-shot locations all over the place. This one's the one we're going to draw today. We're going to draw this final battle room here at F8, which you can find on page 16. It's called Halad's Hideout. He's one of the first big-time villains you meet. And, this is levels 1 through 3. I mean, I think you're like level 3 by the time you get done doing this, because remember, you'll need 1,000 experience to get to the next level. So the venture write-up does a really good job of breaking out all the stat blocks and all the kind of things you'd expect to have, but it spends a lot of time explaining the interrelationships between the characters. There's new enemies that are created out of thin air, which is always nice. It's not like go look up a knoll on page 47 of the bestiary. It has little notes that you can discover, which kind of has that White Plume Mountain. If you remember, the White Plume Mountain adventures were the very first times in D&D you ever got an actual note, like a mystery to solve. It has traps. It has an unsolved murder element to it. You have another NPC character you bump into who's trying to resolve some kind of a problem. It's like a ranger who's going to take you in the woods to go solve some kind of problem with this blighted den. So these are all these side adventures. So overall, it's still the big overarching story, but there's all these little sub-sessions, and you're not going to play this in a day. There's just no way. This is probably getting someone hooked on the adventure the first weekend, and then them wanting to play Sunday, and then them hoping to play maybe Tuesday night, and then maybe come back the next weekend. They got to handle their character a little bit. They want to do some actions. They got some combat, and then you're going into like a little miniature dungeon and start learning some dungeoneering techniques. So it's a really good starter dungeon. I wouldn't say it's a good one for kids. Kids are, I'm not saying that kids. They're all different maturity levels. Kids are usually as excited about the subtleties of character development as you're going to get in here. It's much more of a grown-up module. But if you're playing with grown-ups and kids, you can always prompt the kind of Disney narrative happening to make things kind of exciting. So from that perspective, it's really nice. It has lots of good monsters in it. They're really cool. There's icy rats, fiery leopards, all kinds of crazy stuff. Nothing too adventurous, nothing bizarre and mind-numbing. There's all kinds of interesting characters along the way. So let's just get the villain in this one's called Vilry, however you want to pronounce it. Ultimately, you end up going into her lair and facing her and all her baddies, and the artwork's fantastic and great as always. I'm not a huge fan of this border, but that's just me being critical. I can't help myself. A monster here at the end is really awesome, very scary, something right out of a horror movie. I can't remember which movie it was, but I've seen this creature before somewhere else. I'm trying to remember where it was exactly. Almost it feels like something from Stranger Things. The villain herself and one of her, Wrath of the Lich King type behemoth monsters. If you remember playing that raid instance in Ice Crown Citadel, you'll recognize some of that. And when you get to the very end, there's a whole toolbox of stuff for the game master that deals with the NPCs around town and how the caravans work and the character creation backgrounds that are different, deadly plants, blood ooze, the names of all the different characters. All the characters have kind of a Victorian era meets late 1860s post-Civil War antebellum period type of a vibe going on. So the characters have this kind of Sleepy Hollow kind of thing happening with it. So in summary, overall, it's a very complete adventure. It's completely freestanding. It's probably at least 100 to 200 hours of gameplay, depending on how fast people play. It's complicated to read through the first time because it is very story oriented, and you may find yourself tempted to cheat and give information early, but if you do that, you may mess up kind of the overarching story arc, and then you have a village in of itself. Now, you heard me mention earlier before that in the old days, this was the village of Hamlet. This was the introduction to. There have been other modules done before this, like B1 and In Search of the Unknown and Keep on the Borderlands. But the village of Hamlet was kind of one of the very first adventures we ever had in D&D that had a village. right? We had this beautiful village map, and it was really ultimately connected to the Temple of Elemental Evil. Now, this thing, I can't stand it, but a lot of people really love it, and it's cool. I don't have a problem with it. This is a later version of it from Second Edition, but this whole Village of Hamlet idea of like, I'm going in a village, there's all these NPCs, they had like one picture, they had really good images of the actual inns, but what these guys have done here, they've kind of taken that Village of Hamlet vibe and really added a lot of particular believable details with the way the story unfolds and how the real people living in the town, their personalities and who'd murdered who and who knows what and what's the problem. It's very dramatic. So it's a very human story. It's really easy to get into. The places you're going to go are cool. It has a lot of little one shots. You go in and go out and go in and go out. You don't feel like you're just trudging through a bunch of black iron guards the whole time. You're not doing some wow heroic. Okay, it doesn't feel like that. So overall, I would give this I'd give this a 90. I think it's awesome. My only negative complaints out of this for not making it a 100 is I just, on a personal level, okay, I don't like being a critic, but I'm not going to be a glory boy at the same time. I wish some of the storyline elements weren't as linear as they are. I wish I was given more of a series of subplots. There are subplots in here, but I feel like I'm going through a Disney movie. So nothing against it, but I feel like there's not as much to discover as a player. There's not as much player agency to discover things. I feel like I'm kind of being railroaded through the adventure. That may sound a little harsh, but hey, I'm not a designer that does this. I do video games, dude, so what do I know, right? But I think it's very cool because if you need something structured that's going to really put your players on the path of doing something, and you're not the kind of person with these crazy creative ideas, and you need to read through this thing, you're like, okay, so this is how this works. This is what I need to do here. What does Amora Casillion know? How does the old orchard tie into her? And so you read one or two pages of things, and what's Bort's books do? I mean, this has more backstory than Diablo 3. Okay, so the backstory of the characters, how to play them, and what happens, and who knows what is, you questioning people. Now you're going up and questioning people, and some people like to role play. Some people just like to do it in third-person omniscient narration. So if you wanted something that has a lot of human interaction, detective mystery to it, it has that to it, and I think that's really cool. All right, let's get back and talk about other things, right? That's my review of that one. Maybe the next one will be 100, right? I'm hard to please, so don't take it the wrong way. If you worked on this, you should be proud of what you did. It's really, really good. So let's just get rid of that, and let's get our player panels back up in here. So as you can see on this little slide we have laid out right here, there's a lot of maps. So this is one thing we got any kind of adventure. You can't play without maps. And we're going to move now into the second part of like 3 parts of our video. So if you just came here for the check out the review, we're now going to start talking about the details of the map and how to run it as a game master and how to make your own map. So if you've got your own system you like to use and you don't care about that and you think 2 flip flaps is enough for you, then cool, be sure to like and subscribe and check my next video out. But I'm just going to go ahead and roll right into the next topic because there's a lot of design elements that you may find really interesting for someone who really is going to think about really running this and wants to know how to pull it off really well. So one of the things you're going to find in this adventure is it has a lot of individual maps that are appearing on single pages. North is turned in different directions on different pages. It's all the 8.5 by 11 kind of format. Sometimes, like in the center here, you have 4 or 5 maps on one page. So these things mean that, like, well, here's the map. Go draw this yourself. So you're not given any kind of pop out map pack, or there's nothing you can use to do the map itself. And like most adventures, they have a huge, look at the Vault of the Drow. They redid that hundreds of times, and in one of the big source books of my Wizards of the Coast, there's a huge map of the whole city, and it's like it would take you a month to draw it by hand. So you have to have sometimes play sessions where you have the big map like this and you kind of want to show it to the players and just has a couple of names on it, so you can just Xerox it, right? Or what you want to call it. Take it to the copy shop and copy it. So these things work pretty well. You can copy them, and they left up black lines for you to cut them out. But if you're going to be using a battle map with miniatures, you need those 1-inch squares. So they're very cool to give you the grid already. So if you're playing with Fantasy Grounds or whatever else you're using, if you're a digital player, you only play on the web, you only never play in person, then you're probably set. You could just turn these into digital JPEGs and go to town. But if you're a face-to-face player, you're kind of at this dilemma. You're like, well, man, these maps all over the place. Does it really make a difference? It just kind of looks like a road. Maybe this orchard's not that important. But tactically in the game, the positioning of solid objects and path of travel and how far you can move and where your line of sight, it starts to make more of a difference than it did in previous versions of the game. So it's important to have good maps. So let's go ahead and talk about what we can do. We got like 7 pages of maps. They're mostly overland locations. articulations. That whole thing, like I said before, has the farming village kind of vibe. You have a lot of towers and keeps and basements, so you aren't having any creepy temples and sacrificial rooms and strange hieroglyphs to figure out. So it's not going to be a lot of religion and occultism checks, if you know what I'm trying to say. Most of it's going to be nature oriented and dealing with the characters and doing a little bit of dungeoneering stuff that has normal sized people doors. All the characters are very normal sized type people. You have some monsters in there like little pools of water and stuff like that, but mostly it has that moat house kind of vibe from the Village of Hamlet. Okay, so now you can get the flip maps. I actually got the PDF version of them. The flip maps are cool. Now on the left we have the actual map, the adventure map in the adventure itself. It's if you have the printed version of the adventure or the PDF. This is what it looks like on the left. I call it the adventure map. On the right, it's the flip map. Now I've scaled it down to fit on the screen, obviously. So on the right-hand side, we have this like really high fidelity, digital map that you could take to FedEx office and print it on a poster board. And I did that with my Inner Sea map. I printed it and laminated it. And you could, spend some money. You could spend 30, 40 bucks doing that. You have this high resolution PDF you could actually use for your online play. But one thing you'll notice is like the level of detail of some of the objects in the map drawn in the adventure has more personality than the stuff in the flip map. The flip map kind of has this AutoCAD kind of vibe to it, right? So if you look on the right-hand side, let's just take a look at this area here. I'm going to use my mouse cursor here. Let's talk about this large temple room with these huge types of vat pits here. And if you look at it, first glance, wow, it looks really cool. This has got like a shimmering visual effect. There's a table with a little drop shadow, and here's these two columns, and here's some stairs. I got everything I need to know to play the map. But if you actually look at it over here, you see it has like more grungy bits around the edges. Things have a little more articulation and detail. You start getting a better sense of what the layout is, but it has this loose kind of drawing vibe to it. So for most people, they don't care about this kind of stuff. They're like, whatever, it doesn't make any difference to me. But if you don't own the flip map, then you're going to have to try to draw the thing that you have on the left-hand side. And most of the map drawings are very simple. They're not very complicated. But if you look over here, and if you look at this beautiful amount of terrain, you can almost see the dirt and the crumbling rocks. So you look over here, looks like there's little puddles of water. So there's a discrepancy between, not a major discrepancy, minor subtle details are missing from the flip maps. But the convenience of the flip maps for how much they cost like hardly nothing. It's ridiculous how inexpensive they are. In fact, we could go over that real quick. Let's go look at the other flip map. The flip map means it's two-sided, right? You get a big, large, probably 24 by 36 or 18 by 24 map, and on one side is one map, and you flip it over as the other side. And this is an example of the back side. So one big roll-up poster type map. If you print it, you get this, right? So, but you don't get anything else. You don't get any of the smaller maps. Remember I mentioned about 7 or 8 maps? You're going to have to draw those yourself. So, when you look at the very detailed flip map on the right-hand side, you see subtle details like mosaic tile, flooring, a little bit better drop shadows, furniture and fireplaces look a little bit more realistic. Then you go over here to this side, you see more subtle details, little pieces of furniture. There's no drawing on the floor. So the personality of the maps is very different. So it depends what's really important to you. It doesn't really make that much of a difference. Now, things are in the right place. Like there's nothing wrong with one or the other. It's just the flavor and the style. So that style choices are very, very different. So if the style makes a difference to you, you may want to think of one versus the other. Now you can get the PDF version of the flip maps, but you're not going to be everything. You don't have everything you need. So I want to transition from that point to talk about what I do. So if you were just here to get an idea what the flip maps are about, or you checked out the review, so now we're going to shift into our gears into the third section of this 4-section video that's going to talk about what I like to do and a way that you might want to solve this problem yourself. Because as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of maps in this module. I want to keep saying module because I'm old school AD&D guy, right? There's lots of them all over the place. And if you're going to be playing with miniatures, you're going to need to have that on a grid, and you have to draw a lot. Now, some people don't mind doing that. Over the years, I've been doing battle maps. It's not a problem. So I want to talk to you about a method that I use I think is pretty useful. If you've seen any of my previous videos or even watched my own instructional video from over a year ago, I use what I call a battle glass. And basically what it is, since I used to be an architect a long time ago before I got in the game industry, I used to draw freehand sketches all the time. Architectural sketches are super fast, loose and dirty. They have kind of a style and a look to them. We use 3-line weights. They're kind of fun. I'm going to teach you today how to do that. It's not that hard to do. I'll teach you enough cool sketching techniques today so you can draw your own maps really quickly and super cheap without having to do a lot of hardcore. You don't need a cartography program or any that kind of junk. You just need some super duper crappy cheap materials. I'll teach you like 3 or 4 basic techniques, and before you know it, you'll be drawing your own style. It'll look really good, and there's something beautiful, magnificent about hand-drawn maps. So essentially, you may have seen in some, if you're a member of the Facebook groups I hang out in all the time, sometimes you have situations like this, where this is an example of my 18 by 24 board on the battlefield in the living room with the cool table and the glasses of wine and all the junk laying around and matches to burn up cornholio with, and you don't have a map. This is like a conversion I did of the Hidden Shrine of Tomoe-shan. I'm having to draw it freehand on the plexiglass while the adventurers are on the other side of the table or coming into the room, and I'm having to draw three-dimensional sketches to explain like what's this archway look like at the end of the hallway. And if you ever played Tomoe-shan, you know what the illusion is and all that kind of stuff. I change stuff sometimes, but then that's with no pre-drawn map. I'm having to draw a part of the adventure right there freehand on the spot, and we're rubbing off half the map with the dry erase markers and all that kind of business is happening, right? So that's one method. The other method you may see in situations in some of my videos where I've drawn it ahead of time, and it's actually laid down beneath the plexiglass. So when I draw on top of the plexiglass, I never ruin anything. And I tell you what I'm going to do. Let me just show you a quick example on the other camera here, what we're talking about. I'm just going to turn this off real quick and turn the overhead camera on, and we'll turn these player panels off. So let's get the WTF board out of the way. So you may have seen in a bunch of other videos that I will draw, I draw tons of maps, right? I drew this kind of loose chicken scratch. It's to scale. It's all to 1-inch scale. This is a map with a wharf, an underground cave. Here's a map from the Remorhaz cave at the glacial rift of the frost giant jar with this huge field of bones, and these are really tall cliffs, and this is a sinkhole at the end if you know your lore about the glacial rift. I'm not going to show you every map I've ever done. I'm just going to show you like 4 or 5 of them. This is a room I used a long time ago to explain to people how big the octagon was in the UFC. This is the size of the octagon in the UFC. We're doing a lot of melee conversations, kind of like a temple, coming the big temples, torches, and real tall ceiling, whatever, tapestries on the wall. So as you can see, these are on really thin, crinkly, loud tracing paper, right? And we're going to talk about where you get that stuff and how much it costs, because it's really cheap. It's so absurdly cheap. You'd be like, oh my God, this stuff's so cheap. It's cheaper than any other paper I'd ever need. This is the first room in the Hidden Shrine of Tomoe-shan. I mean, you can actually see, you can line it up with the grid right here pretty quickly, right like that. So this is how it sits on the grid. And what I do when I play is I'll take, I went down to Lowe's or Home Depot, and I got a bunch of pieces of plexiglass like this, and I put these furniture cabinet stops on them, and then what I can do is I can lay this on top of the map, and then we can do stuff, say like, okay, so you're going to come in here and this thing's blown open and this torch is burning, and you make the door and the door opens, it falls down and collapses on the floor, and everyone gets crushed to death and dies. Sorry, reroll. So you can draw on top of this without ruining your cool map underneath it. And you may have seen me, sorry about the shaking, you may see me do that from time to time. So you don't have to do all that. But if you want to learn, what you might glean from the video today is how to draw some of these kind of rough architectural style sketches and these things are done really fast. I mean, so many things are done in like 20 minutes or less. And sometimes they're just like, oh, I want the player to really feel like where they are on the map, coming from the beach and going up to this temple just to get into a temple to go down a pit, right? So we're going to talk about that next. How do we do it? What do we use to draw those kind of maps? I'm actually going to teach you how to do some of that stuff yourself and have confidence that it can be done. You can be taught. I can teach you. I know I can teach you. I can teach you how to draw cool stuff, and you will have your own style. There's only a couple of techniques you need to learn how to do. So with that method I use that has the plexiglass and the grid underneath it, you can see that I have drawn a 1-inch grid on there freehand by using just a ruler, like a large yardstick and a Sharpie marker. And I use little tokens and miniatures, and I put felt backs on them so they don't slide around all over the place. So that works really well for me. But the good thing is that you can photograph the maps. So once you've drawn them once, you roll them up in a tube and stick them in a corner. They take up less room than a pool cue, less room than a Fender Stratocaster. You can photograph them using your digital game. So if you draw the maps yourself, you'll draw them like 55 times faster than using Photoshop. And they'll have more personality and style. So, okay, I'm done convincing you of that. Let's move on from there. So like I said before, you don't want to draw them. If you just have this pre-drawn grid and this plexiglass, you can actually pre-draw on multiple pieces of plexiglass and store them separately and then set them on the table. I do that a lot. I'll usually I'll have a venture where I know they can go left and go right, and I'll actually have the next three rooms to the left, the next three rooms to the right, drawn on six pieces of plexiglass set to the side. If I have not had time to prepare by drawing what I call battle maps, which is on the yellow tracing paper like we saw a moment ago. So what do we do to draw these things, right? This is what we use. Now don't be intimidated because you don't use all this stuff. You basically just have some basic rules to remember. The dry erase markers, that's just for drawing on plexiglass. If you're never ever going to use this plexiglass method, you just forget about that. If you already use a battle map with wet erase markers, you're set, right? You know what dry erase markers are. The one tip I'll tell you: if you store dry erase markers pointing down with the cap on tight, they will stay blacker longer. If you store them in a coffee cup with the cap pointed up, the ink will sink down to the bottom of the like soapy foam junk that's inside of it, and it won't be as black as you want it to be. Now, also remember that when you open it up, if you leave it in the back seat of a car in the heat of Texas summer, you're going to have trouble too, right? So, what we use is Sharpies. So Sharpies are cheap, cheap, cheap three-line weights. And if you look at the picture here, you see the big fatty here, which you would mark your like moving boxes with. It's called a chisel tip. Chisel tip is super important. You need to have a chisel tip Sharpie. The one in between that most people are used to, you see everywhere, people write graffiti on bathroom walls and junk like that, is this one here is called a fine point. And then below that's a third tier called an ultra fine point, which is like a 0.5 millimeter. Now, whether you're an old school dude like me that uses a crappy pencil, which you can buy for like 300 pencils for $1 these days, or a mechanical pencil, it doesn't matter. You need something that you can draw that's got some lead on it. And that's really all you need. You don't need this death-defying Sharpie that's in the back that costs $8, that's crazy, marks a lot, permanent mark. You don't need any of that crap. Just 3 Sharpies, 1 pencil. That's all you need. In fact, it should be a crap pencil. So if you have those things at your disposal, now you need to say, okay, well, what kind of paper are you drawing? Do you keep talking about? Okay, it's called Bean Fang Canary Yellow. Now, in the architectural industry, it's number 107. In the architecture world, we call it bumwad, which makes you think of like a derogatory term for using toilet paper, because it really is that kind of stuff. You heard it crinkling earlier, right? Here's it crinkling on the microphone now. It sounds kind of like toilet paper, wrapping paper from Christmas time. So the reason why we use that is in architecture, we lay a lot of tracing paper on top of drawings and do multiple sketches and sequences. We'll sketch something out, we'll draft something, and then we'll lay something on. This is the old days. They do it on AutoCAD now because they're stupid. We would trace something with this Da Vinci mode in the old days. They don't do it anymore. We would lay tracing paper on top of it, and we could put marker on one side and mark on the other side, and then color pencil, make it just leap off the page and do perspective sketches to try to make the buildings, the designs we're doing come alive. So it takes marker and colored pencil really, really well. Of course, it allows you to trace and has a very easy technique for edge tearing, which I'll show you, and it's super cheap. If you don't believe how cheap it is, go to this website. Go to Blick, dickblick.com. Terrible name, right? It sounds like a German word for a milk. Go to dickblick.com and just type in like canary yellow bean fang, or however you pronounce it, Ben Fang. They've been bought out by a bunch of companies over there. You'll see the stuff, they sell it in rolls. So there'll be rolls that are like 12 inches wide. Today we're going to use a 12-inch roll. I have 18-inch rolls. Like the one you see right there is a 20 yards times 18 inches. 20 yards. Okay, that's 60 feet. I think it costs like $4. That's a lot of paper. And you need some crappy Scotch tape, and you need some kind of eraser, not some crappy rubber eraser on the end of a pencil. You need like a Pelican, a nice soft eraser, so when you erase things, it doesn't tear and rip the paper. If you use the little erasers they put on the ends of pencils, they're complete shite. They're terrible. They don't work good at all. Don't ever use those. Little kids use those to try to change their answers on a multiple choice SAT test. That doesn't work. Get a little good, decent little white eraser. You don't have to go to an architectural store and spend a bunch of money. You can get this crap at your freaking grocery store. In fact, you can get it at Walmart. I mean, it costs you like, just go to Walmart. Like right now with back to school junk that's going on, you can go there and get all this stuff today for like $20. The only thing you have trouble finding is you probably won't be able to find the tracing paper except at like Michael's or Hobby Lobby or some other architectural supply store. But if you're patient, you can order it online from Amazon and have it the next day if you have Prime, and you'll be set. It's no problem whatsoever. So now we're going to shift to the fourth part, Act 4 of our show today. We're going to talk about doing all the stuff and bring it together to draw a map. We're going to draw the map live in living color, right? And you still won't be able to see my face. I won't reveal my face till we get to 10,000 subscribers. So, because I'm that handsome. Anyway, so if you want to follow along in the module, if you already have it, you can do that. On page the map itself for Halid's hideout, he's one of the first enemies you meet in the game. He's a bad boy. He's kind of like a crony of the main villain, Villery, whatever her name is, and he's got some nasty traps set up, and he's got this hideout. He's kind of like a serial killer kind of a guy. He's really nasty. He's got instructions he gets from a drop point. He's a cool character. I really like how Jason put him together. I think it's really cool. I like him a lot. I think he's great. Good typical thug, right? A thug that's got a plan. It puts the lotion in the basket kind of a guy. So the description of this little miniature below the house little dungeon and hideaway is on pages 21 and 22. So let's just go through. And one thing you should do before you draw any map is you need to make sure you really understand and have read everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to read through real quickly without showing you on the screen what you would have at your disposal before you enter this room. Now, before I do that, there's a couple of big, ugly white break marks here. This is not the architectural way to do this. I don't know what they mean, but what they're trying to do here is they're showing that there's great distances between here, and then here and here. So just consider it a break line, okay? To get the map to fit on the page, there's long amounts of winding tunnel. There could be another 10 minutes of gameplay. In fact, in the description, between this room here, which has like electrified eels in it, and Halid's trap room and ambush in of itself, this is a long distance. So let me just read you to this one section here. The tunnel beyond the snake's lair, which is the area with the water that you see that's about right here. This is like a nasty snake lair. Twists and turns for a great distance. It takes the player characters 10 minutes to traverse it before they can detect a faint natural light up ahead, and the air becomes notably cleaner. Light up ahead, the air becomes notably cleaner, smelling vaguely of grass. Another 5 minutes of travel, and the tunnel opens up into a cave mouth. Read or paraphrase the following sentence to the player. So here, we'll just read it to you. The tunnel you've been traversing opens into a cave, and you can see a forest beyond the cave's mouth. The roots of a large tree block the middle of its entrance, as the tree had grown in the hillsides and eroded away. Beyond the tree is a large pond. A path around the water begins to one side beneath a curtain of moss hanging from the tree. The cave itself is piled high with 2 rows of neatly stacked crates and boxes. So this is where the bad guy is, and he's got a trap in here. And since we're going to draw this map today, we are going to talk about the traps. So I'm going to there's a little bit of spoiler there. So if you're a player and you don't want to spoil this adventure, don't watch this next part. I'm not going to talk to you about how to play it. We're not going to get miniatures out. What I'm going to do is tell you about how to draw the map and how to make it work out. So there is 2 little traps that this guy has in here. You can see them as these dashed lines where it says F8. And what they're considered as spear launchers. And the way it's described in the module or the adventure on page 22 is Halid has set up a pair of spear launcher traps in a room with rather obvious trip lines, or trip wires, stretching from wall to wall between the rows of barrels and crates. These ropes, now they're ropes, these ropes are marked on the map with dotted lines. Due to the obvious nature, anyone about to enter the space occupied by a trip line or tripwire can attempt a DC 15 perception check to notice the trigger. So remember, these characters are level 1 to 3, but you see it, but the NPC himself can like push you into them. So you need to think about that when you're drawing them out, because it's going to actually have an architectural impact on what we're going to do. Now, you have to go back to page 17 to read the details of these things, and if you go back to page 17, it really tells you these spear launchers are they're kind of like heavy crossbows hidden in a pile of trash. So if it fires off once, that's it. So it's not like it's going to be a repeating crossbow or some kind of dart trap from Indiana Jones or anything like that. So what we're going to do next is we're going to draw this, man. We're going to draw this for you. So I'm going to turn this camera back on. We're going to do it from scratch, like nothing from the very beginning, just using what we have in the module. So we have a couple things to consider. The first thing we want to consider is how big it is. So we're going to use this 12-inch trace paper here today. We're going to make our map 12 inches wide. We're not going to make it 13. Now, if you look on the map on the right-hand side, you see that it looks like it's a little bit wider, but most of this area in here is all rock and stuff. So if we cheat this in 1/2 inch on each side, no one's going to know the difference, ever. No one's going to say, wait a minute, the lake only cut in 23 inches here. It really makes, that's not going to happen. But what we want to make sure we do to scale is the width of the room, where the traps are, the crenellations going in and out, where the tree is located, the details. I kind of want the architectural details, where the junk is, and all that kind of stuff. So we're actually going to draw this live for you. And I've got another camera set up as well. We'll be able to show you another angle like this a little bit later on, okay? So the first thing we want to do, we got to make sure we got enough paper out here to do the measurements. Now what you do with this tracing paper, you roll it out like I just did, like that, right? So you set one piece down, one end down, and you can just usually roll it out to be whatever length you need it to be. You can use an architectural scale like this to cut off however much. You don't need a pair of scissors. So if we see this as 16 squares, or which is 80 feet. So let's just take a look here, make sure we have enough room. We know we got the width right? So the map's going to be kind of turned at a side for you, right? It should be turned the same way that you're seeing it, actually. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. What do we say? 16. So the map's about here. So we're going to shuffle it over to about the middle. So just to make life a little bit easier, what I'm going to do is going to line the edges up with this line, line this up with this line, like this. I'm just going to take this scale, I'm going to line it up with this right here, and what you do is you hold the edge of the paper and you pull it like this and you just tear it. And what happens is it just tears a perfectly clean piece of paper for you. That is your first architectural trick. You will learn that in your first day of classes. So now that we got that there, we want to get this thing on the grid pretty accurately, because we're going to use it all the way to the edges. Now I'll just use my dry erase marker eraser to kind of get the air out from underneath it. And we're going to be using permanent markers here. So this board underneath here is what I use as a drawing board. I never put my battle maps on this. I never do that, because you can see it's gotten a little bit of love and disaster and crafting and miniature painting and all kinds of ink spills on it. So if you got an extra one of these, this is what you want to do. Good old-fashioned masking tape. Need some of that to hold things down so it doesn't move around a lot. We're not going to be doing multiple layers or anything. We're just going to tape this down. And the only thing about the masking tape that's kind of nasty is that when you get ready to remove it later, you are going to tear the ends off unless you're super careful. And I'm not going to make you roll a DC for super carefulness. And you want to get the air out from underneath it if you can. So just whoosh that away. And one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to use our amazing invention called the pencil to figure out and block out where some of the core primary elements of the map are. What I do is I do a series of tick marks, and then I improvise in between relatively accurately. This thing's turned at an angle for me, so hopefully I don't make a mistake. So at the very bottom, we look over here. We see at the very bottom. I'll try to put my cursor over here so you can see. So this distance between the two traps, the biggest width we have, this thing's centered. Let's just say this is 13. We're going to do 12. Let's say that the tree is off center a little bit. So we have 1, 2, 3 here, and then we've got 1, 2, 3 here. So we come down the middle. So this is kind of offset. Let's locate this line here beneath the word, the letters R and E of square. So we're going to come in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's just say that this line right here down the middle is the center line of our drawing, right? So one thing you want to do is kind of get yourself a center line. So it's pretty easy with this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So this is going to be your center line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the center line. So this is the center line of the whole map. And you can use that as a point of reference for where the center of things is. So now that you got the center line established, which what we're going to do here is assume we're going to say that the center line of the whole map is, let's just use this one here underneath the letter S. Let's say the letter S is the center line. So from there, we can kind of go over to the side 1 square. So the edge of this entrance pretty much starts at the edge of the center line. So we're going to put this little tick mark here. We're just going to put a little mark here. It looks like it's about 5 feet wide. So we're just going to put this loose little mark here to say that's going to be the entrance. And we can move that down if we want to. So then we go up about 5 feet. We go about 5 feet, and then we start turning away. So we go up another 5 feet or so, then we start turning. It starts turning over. And then we go back about 10 to 15 feet, 1, 2, 3, so it kind of turns over like this. And then it starts to duck under and come back up. It goes 1, 2, 3, 15 up, 1, 2, 3, so it starts to come up like this. And then we got some rando crenellations. Now the next thing I would do is I would try to determine where my stop line is for this line here. If you see this line about right here, this is where the water begins. So let's count from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10, which is about 50 feet. So let's just go from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we're just going to say that this is where the water begins. All right? So you can even write on here if you don't remember. So this is the center line. This is the center line. This is the water. And we said we're going to use our center line being where the letter S is, right? Basically, the center of the tree is going to be right here. So that means we're going to have this tree kind of happening like this, right? With arms sticking out. And we're going to draw over ink and erase all that stuff. So we have a tree kind of happening here, right? And then you're going to have this water's going to kind of tuck down. And if we go in about 5 feet in from this tree, we can start determining how far we've got the width here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We've got about 7. So let's go 1, 2, 3. So we've got the edge of the cave here. 1, 2, 3. Edge of the cave here. That's good enough. So this is tapering. And then from this point forward, you can probably just wing most of this stuff because no one's really going to know. No one's ever really going to know how far you did it or not. So what we're going to do, we're going to just go through here like this, and we're just going to kind of gradually make up the rest of this cave by loosely looking at, you got this mound in front of the tree has a mound kind of going on with it. This is opening out that way, and we can just kind of wing some of this. Where this mound is about a 5-foot gap about happening here. We come in about 10 feet, then we start tucking in, and then we got some like tuck in, tuck back out, and we just put this like that. That's kind of loosely what the cave looks like. Now, there is this area here where things kind of dip in more like a cul-de-sac where part of the spear trap is. Let's start thinking about where the first spear trap is. So the first spear trap is like 15 feet from the flat edge of the bottom where I had the word distance written in there. It's going right to the middle of the square. So we'd have 1, 2, so we got a spear trap's going to happen between here and here. So let's make sure our first spear trap is pretty much lined up properly. So we need this to kind of tuck under like this, and it's got a little crenellation kind of tucking in like this. So spear trap goes across here, and then we've got this gradually sloping back in stuff happening here. And then there's some rando business here that doesn't really make any difference to anyone. And then we got this mouth of this cave goes out like this, and this goes out like this. Now let's just get an idea real quick of how far this pond is. How far from the back of the tree sticks out in the pond? About 10 to 15 feet. So you got this tree sticking out like this. And you got about 10 to 15 feet going out here. 1, 2, 3. Let's just say this pond is basically something loose like this. All right. Now you don't have to be super accurate. This is all organic crap. No one really cares, but we do want to pay attention to the spears. So let's make this look starting from the bottom here. We'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's right on between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, between 7 and 8. So the line between 7 and 8, let's find where that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, between 7 and 8. So right between here is spear trap number 2. So spear trap number 2, it looks to me like it launches out of here. And this is where a little bow comes out. So we're going to put a little bow there. And the width there is what? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 and a half. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. So it could go about like this. Let's tuck this in like this. So this is something about the trap you have to notice very carefully. On this side here is the spear trap shooting point. Then it would stick into a barrel. This is the spear. It's actually a crossbow if I remember correctly. This shoots from here and then it hits here. So on this one over here we have like a little box or something it's going to hit, and on this one here it hits a barrel. So the spear comes out of the wall. So what you want to do is put a little box here. These are the shooting points. So you'd have a spear or crossbow bolt shoots out this way from this one, and it shoots out that way from this one. Now another thing you want to do, if I could do this in hindsight, I would draw this whole cave. I'd make a rando cave that swirls all the way around in case the players want to pull the enemy back down in here, but we're not going to do that for now. All right, now we've also got this mound type action happen here. Let's put that like that. And we've got like a copse of trees happening like this. Let's put this rando copse of trees going along like this. There's no real major, we'll show you how to do architectural trees and stuff here. And this lake is a little bit larger than we have. It actually goes around this edge and it comes around this way, right? So, all right, that's pretty much that. All right, so let's start off with getting the cave walls nailed first. And you may see right off the bat that I'm not doing it absolutely 100% mega accurately. Now the reason why I'm not doing that is because we're doing this fast. It won't have a major impact on gameplay. We got the general configuration of things. We got the spear trap coming this way, spear trap going this tree, mound, pond, cave, crenellations. We'll put all the details, the architectural details in later. We've got how like the sandy area to get out, you're going to go out this way. You don't really go through the water to go out this way like this. So we've got the major details in here. So as to have a battle in this space, we've pretty much got this space worked out pretty well. One thing you'll notice is the distance between, the mound and this second spear line is pretty close. It's like only 5 feet. And from this spear point here, there's about what, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we got 4.5 feet here. So what I do, you're going to use the big one first. This is the chisel point. Let me give you a crash course on chisel point. We'll do this on a couple pieces of paper. So when you're holding these pens in your hand, what you don't want to do is tuck your thumb over like this, right? I'll do it with a marker. In fact, we'll do it on this. Let me pull this up for you. Here's what you don't want to do. When you're holding something like this, you basically have 2 points. This thing has a chisel point to it, right? This is a close-up view of the marker. So you got this big black chisel point going like this, right? So, and you're trying to draw a line. So you got two types of lines you can draw. You can draw a super black big line that looks like this, or you can draw a thin little line that looks like that. So you basically have two line weights. You have thin lines that you can draw like this, right? Which is great for drawing grids or doing little dots or doing little details or drawing little skulls on your table or whatever you're going to do, or drawing little swords lying on the ground. And then you have this big flat lines which work really, really good for drawing walls. And how you hold the marker helps you make sure that the lines you're drawing are going to line up with that kind of stuff. So when you get ready to draw doors and all this kind of business, you can do things. So you basically have two line weights. You have the thin one, number one, and you have the two flat one. This is good for walls, right? And edges, this is good for details. Now there's another line weight that we do when we do the Sharpie that's in between, and I'll show you how we do that as well. So just to give you the crash course. So what you don't want to do is you don't want your thumb like this. Some people write their name, hi, my name is Timmy, right? And they have this handwriting that looks like that. Architectural writing, we do it this way. Not that I'm trying to turn you into an architect. We actually use everything horizontal. So my name is T. Elliott Cannon, right? All verticals are thin, all horizontals are thick. So if your name was Sam, you would hold the flat edge and go S-A-M. Or if your name was Jason, Bulmahn, right? You're Jason. You kind of go like that. So you can see the combination of vertical lines, thick lines, thick lines, thick lines, like that. And the other thing you'll notice about when we do architectural stuff is we overlap lines. One thing we don't do is we don't go like this. We don't go to a point and then we don't go like this, right? We go like this. We cross everything. This is one thing you'll think is a big detail. Everything has a cross. This cross creates a rectilinear 90-degree angle. It makes a real strong emphasis of where things begin and end. Also, when you're using markers and stuff, when it comes to an end, there's like a bloop at the end. And if you try to have bloop 1 on top of bloop 2, it looks kind of funny. The way that we would draw things is we do stuff like this, and then we go like that. Kind of helps you say, this is going this way, and this is going that way, and they intersect each other. They're not rounded corners like that. We don't draw stuff with rounded corners that looks like a child did it. All right, so that's a quick crash course in that. So how you hold the marker is important. If you notice what I do is I hold it like this because I rotate between this and that. So I want to do flat lines. I'm going like this. In fact, we'll turn this other camera on real quick so you can see a detail of this. Let's put this little crap camera on here. And then I can do this over here for you to see a little bit better. So we have horizontal lines that we'll do nice and flat like this. And notice how I'm holding the pen. These two are putting pressure. I'm pinching. So I'm pinching, but I'm guiding with this finger. The index finger is guiding the angle, right? And I can just move like this. My wrist is not moving. My arm is not. I'm never moving my arm. Okay, I'm putting my elbow down, and I just do a long straight line. I move my arm like a pool cue. It's a pivot point. Now, when I'm doing the vertical lines, I actually put the palm, like you're palm muting on a guitar. If you're a palm muter, if you know what that is, you can go like this, draw straight lines. You can draw really long straight lines. You kind of do it like this, all right? So it depends how you hold it. So remember, if you have the thumb tucked all the way over, it's like a bad golf grip. You don't want to do that. You want that thumb underneath the marker so that when you're doing the drawing like this, you can actually quickly rotate and change the type of line weight you're doing. Let's give you a quick example of that. Let's just draw a crappy little sword, right? So thin line, thin line, thin line, thin line. Notice how I'm just pinching. See this? Okay, we're pinching. Thin line, say this is a little sword. Notice how the lines are crossing? Everything's crossing. It's sloppy. It's not graphic novel art. Graphic novel art takes 200 times longer than this. This is crap with WTF sketches. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool magic sword, right? Loose. Everything is loose. Nothing is overly calculated. If it's wrong, it doesn't matter. You can erase it and draw on top of it, right? So you are quickly drawing something really, really fast. You're not trying to go like this, right? And then you realize that, oh no, I'm kind of off an angle a little bit. My sword is crooked. You know, then you have this huge recognizable. When you go like this, you're more likely to draw a fast line. Fast, thick line. This marker's kind of screwed. fast, wrong. And so you do stuff very, very quickly. So in your mind, you're actually able to think about where is the line going to be, where's the line going to start, where's the line going to end, where's it going to start, where's it going to end. So you actually just go right to the spot. And when you start drawing multiple things in multiple directions, you start keeping track of how parallel and where the intersections of things are really happening very quickly. So you get really good at seeing things in that way. All right, so you see these little details? Those little things give it some personality. Okay, let's go draw them out. So if you've got your thumb over and you think you're doing the Tiger Woods method, you're going to be in trouble. So it's not this golf grip crap. It's loose, fast, loose. All right, so I'm going to, I got this big horrible light here. Let's kill that. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do these outside cave walls all the way around with this big fat chisel tip mama here, right? So just going to be bold. Now what I like to do, you notice I'm putting my thumb down. I'm actually putting my thumb down and holding this close. Do not let your draw away from your hand. If you draw towards your hand, you may smear things, because as you draw stuff, this stuff is going to be wet for a second or two. You don't want to have a situation when your hand is going back over what you just drew, or you'll put these terrible drippy mildew lines everywhere. Now, when you're doing something that's cave-like, it's okay for it to have jagged edges, right? So you kind of want the stuff to be jaggedy. We're not drawing ocean breezes and stuff. We're drawing jagged little cave edges. You want that flat, flat, brutal, you can put this in the back here, flat, brutal, organic, jagged cave, rip the side of your skin off kind of vibe. Now notice I'm putting my finger here. See, I've already got it all over me. Putting my finger here so I can hold this taut. I'm going to draw towards me. I'm not going to put my hand down, right? So I'm going to have to keep this up in the air, and I'm keeping that, I'm turning my arm like this as I go through this, because I know that I need to keep my hand away. I don't want my hand dragging across this. So we're going to hold this tight, because I know I'm going to go against the grain of the paper. And if you wanted to, you could try doing this, but I'm right-handed, so I can't see where I'm going. So my eyes can't see through the marker to see where it's going to go. So I need to be able to see where I'm going, so I'm going to cock my hand this way so I can see underneath where I'm going to go. Because what I'm going to do is my mind's going to make these millions of little micro adjustments all along the way as I start drawing this. And if it turns this way, you can go like this, cut around this way, and we're going to leave that there. We're going to articulate the little spear trap later. And then you can see drawing this like this, see how wet it is? I'm going to go around like this, and I'm actually going to turn this cave like this, and then I'm going to put that away, and I'm going to use this fine point, which is a good old-fashioned Sharpie that everyone's ever seen. I'm just going to do a little swoosh mark here like this, and that swoosh mark basically means that there's something beyond. Basically it means like this. It just looks like a heartbeat pulse in a heart monitor. Okay, don't worry about the pencil, we erase that stuff later. So now we're going to do this tree. Now when you think about line weight, so the biggest outside walls are super black. If you really wanted to, you could get some other marker, or you could flip this over and put hash marks and also, but to keep this thing fast, I'm not going to do that. That's artistic beautification. You could get Death Mama out, right? I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do that. You could take the world's biggest, fat, nastiest thing possible and draw this big black. You could do that. You can do whatever you want. I don't want to do that. We're going to do this fast. So the next thing we need to take about, let's go ahead and draw the traps in here. So we're going to use this the same kind of way, hold it the same way. It's the the communication finger and the thumb and the index finger is guiding it. So we're going to draw where the trap shoots out of is a little square, right? And the trap shoots out of a little square here. We're just going to draw this. It looks mechanical. You're just putting a little square there, right? And we know that this is going to shoot across, but we're not going to draw those dashes on here. Those dashes are for the game master. The reason why we don't draw those dashes is because we don't want the players to see it. We might be able to draw on our battle glass later, or tell our players during the game that it looks like there's a line on the ground. They may not notice it. Remember, there's like a DC of 15 or something. So that's done. Now let's do the tree and the sloping mud pile that's on. So in my mind, I imagine this big, big tree, kind of like in Terra, with a bunch of dirt coming up and the big roots and everything, kind of like Sleepy Hollow, and they got the lake around it. So what we're going to do, let's draw the tree. Now I'm not going to try to draw the way they did it. I'm going to make my own tree. So I'm just going to take this, I'm just going to draw this creepy, crappy branches starting off thick at the base and tapering together. Huge, nasty trees, right? I'm going to have this taper. It's like a heart. It's thick in the middle, and then all these blood vessels are coming off it. Creepy. Edgar Allan Poe would be happy. And we're going to do this out like this. That's nasty looking. That's a nasty looking tree. Now if you want to, once you've done that, you can go ahead and add some other details if you wanted to. If you want to add some other little crap branches or whatever, make them branch off. Use the thinner part of the marker and do a couple of little branches and draw little tips. You've seen trees before. There's tons of little sketchbooks that show you how to draw trees. This is just crappy, quick architectural sketch tree, right? Just going to put some little branches out near the tips. So imagine like little roots. You ever potted a plant before? You're looking for root rot. Little tendrils, bronchial tendrils coming out. Nasty. All right. That's cool. And at this point, if you want to spend more time making more detail, you can, but we're going to keep it fast. So we got a tree. That's great. Now what we need to do is this thing has like this mud kind of like pit. Now this is one thing about the art. If you see here on the right, let me grab the mouse real quick. The way they drew this art is kind of confusing. This has got like a drop shadow and a slope on this side, and it's concealing the back face. It's almost like when they drew the picture, they wanted to kind of present to you this angle as if you're looking at it this way, and that's not really what's going on. Well, actually, you can't see that because I got the other camera in the way. Let me just move that out of the way. All right, so over here, the tree, sorry, I forgot I had the other camera on. You see how this is drawn with this like drop shadow along here? It's kind of drawing that, as I was saying, as if you're looking at it from this angle. We're going to do our stuff planar, floor plan view from straight down. Let's just turn this other little camera back on so you can watch all this amazingful drawing techniques. So the way you want to do that really is you want to just kind of draw a loose line like this, and don't let it intersect the main trunk, like this. And so the branches of the tree can stick out and make it curved. That's the first one. And then let's do another one, real light, just kind of sort of parallel but undulating back and forth to represent kind of a slope. And I'm actually going to let this slope kind of die off into the water, because I'm going to be like, it's a cliff over here, the water's eroded away, and it's coming around down here. So we're going to have this one pick up here. So we've got this slope happening like this. And this will dissuade someone from going this way. All right, so that's good enough for that part. Now, let's do the shoreline. So underneath this, there's a shoreline that's going all the way around, right? But it actually just kind of connects like this. So we're going to do this as a curve. Nice, long, swooping curve. I sound like that Bob Ross guy. And we're going to put some lines along the edges here like this. Now, if you wanted to, if you really, really wanted to, you could take the bigger Sharpie and get a really bold kind of like edge of pond line going on here, and you could put a bolder line to mean top of tree plateau kind of vibe. If you really wanted the line weight to really jump off the page, you could do that if you wanted to. I'll leave that up to you. Now, when you get over here and you have water, what you want to do is you want to do like little dashes and loose. This is something that Darlene did a lot of in her Greyhawk map. So you want these things to kind of overlap like this. And you've got water trickling up along here, right? You just do, and as things ripple, the ripples are further apart, so we just put some loose, faint memories of ripples going on like this, and maybe another set of strong ripples happening through here. And put another one right through here. And we got some trees in the background. Let's get this big guy. So I'm going to do my trees like this, right? Like jaggedy oak tree line. Not pine trees, deciduous trees, ones that drop their leaves. And that can just imply that's forest beyond. Now this is water, right? So we've got cave happening here, and this is water. So there's a transition, if you see, I'm going to just close this one thing real quick. There's a transition you can see from the over here where it says the word tree. This is sand. So it's the same kind of sand here all the way out to here. There's sand all the way around the edges of the pond. So what you could do is over here is you could say, okay, let's just do this like quick little gibble stitches, right? So we're just not really drawing sidelines, we're like touching this, like stippling almost, just to be, and every now and then you can make it stick in and jibble like that and just have that go around like that. So that means this is all becoming sand. So if it's sand, it's going to have dots. So one of the techniques you can do is do dots far away, and they get closer together as they get to edges. And you'll see that real quick here. So you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So just do quick little dots. And this is dot everywhere. So you can do this throughout the whole map. So you have dots out here, right? This is just giving us a sense of texture. This is all sand, and you want to make it look like there's sand happening all the way in here, especially with this area here with this big slope. 1, 2, 3. We're going to get close. And be careful when you're moving your hand around because you're going to smear it. You don't want to do that. It can happen very easily, right? You don't want that to happen. So around edges is where you want stuff like that to happen. So we got a lot of sand action happening right here and at the base of the tree. In fact, if you wanted to do some more junk lines underneath the base of the tree, you could do that too. This is just a super dirty, super fat, noisy chair. All right, what else we got to do? Now in the map itself, it shows this as being relatively flat. I'm actually going to make it slope up. So this is what we call topography lines. The way I like to do this is use my third line weight, which is the smaller ultra fine marker, still with the sticker on the side of it, made in China. That's going to be handy. And what we're going to do, we're going to do a topography line. It's just a really thin line like this. And each one of these represents maybe about a 1 foot or 2 foot drop in elevation. So if you're standing, and you can make them come closer and closer. So that way this is sloping up. So someone's standing here and standing here, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 6 feet difference, so this is stepping up. And you don't really need to have that topography line happening out here, but if you wanted to, you could draw a topography line out here to represent this is all going down. This is all sloping down. That's a detail you don't usually need to do. And then what I'll do on topography line is I'll sometimes take this small line weight and I'll just draw little jibble lines just on try to make it feel right. All right, so we've got that done. Now, if you want to do any kind of drop shadows, you can. You don't have to. The tree itself, probably needs some kind of texturing on it. What I would probably do, to tell you the truth, if it was me, I'd probably just do some hash marks. I'd probably just go through the tree and just do some hash marks like this. It's just something on the tree to let me know this is some other material. It doesn't have to be magnificent or beautiful or anything like that. Just some kind of parallel lines to give me a sense that this is some other material. So it would jump off the page. It's called tonal lines, technically. Jump off the page from the dirt that's beneath it. And if you wanted to, you could just go like this. Just enough so that at a glance it looks like this is something else. If you want to put crap out here, put little trees, little leaves and stuff. When you have the line weight in your hand, you're also very tempted to start doing line weight everywhere. Little patches of grass and junk like that. Draw little rocks, circles and stuff. And we're getting into too much detail. Let's put another, there, okay. Now we need to look at furniture. So at a glance, we know we have a spear trap happening here. We have a spear trap happening here. And part of the description said that there was lots of, there's junk in here. So if you see from this first trap, there's lots of barrels and crates in here. Now, players in combat are going to use those to their advantage. And if you notice this area here, what it's trying to do is trying to guide you to go towards the letter F8. So let's do the same kind of thing. A couple barrels, and there's a thing in the middle. So basically the path of circulation is you kind of have a path through here, right? And then you have a path through here on the other side. So if you're walking, you walk through here. This is blocked off. This is kind of blocked off. And this is kind of blocked off. So let's do the same kind of thing. And then at the very bottom, you see the path of circulation. It's kind of like there's a little path here, blocked in the middle, and a little path here. So we have a little bit of a path happening here. We have a tiny little path happening here, and everything in between, we're going to block that off. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to draw boxes and crates and whatever I feel like drawing that's going to pretty much meet that. Let's start off with barrels. So we're just going to draw some circles. Here's some barrels here. Put some random barrel here. Make sure you don't draw it in front of your spear line, right? Let's put some barrels close together. Put another barrel here. And we've got another pack of barrels happening here. And we're going to draw these in better detail in a little bit. We're just going to get the circles down first. Maybe there's some other, remember the spear traps happening here. It's going to hit this crate. We can go ahead and just draw that one lone crate out here if you want to. Just draw a little square. And this one here, as I remember, hits a barrel. So we got that line of sight hitting that crate there. Okay. And then we've got some more, I got a couple more barrels happening here, something like this. What's happening over here? Just some more crates and barrels of rando junk. Someone just copied and pasted and threw stuff everywhere. That's fine. And we're going to draw some crates. Now, when it comes to scale on these things, you just eyeball on this. You don't want something 5 by 5. You're not going to draw a crate that's 5 feet by 5 feet. It's not Quake, right? You're trying to draw something that's maybe about 2.5 by 2.5 feet. Another thing you like to do is try to draw them organically placed. Don't always make them all rectilinear everywhere, right? Let's put another crate here. That's going to block the line of sight of that. This might block the line of sight of that. Let's put a crate here in the corner. Let's put another crate here, kind of parallel to the wall. Put a barrel here. People like to shove things against the wall. What do we have on the other side? This is all exposed. I'm actually just going to throw another crate here, a couple of crates along this wall. I'm going to put a barrel here. Get that line of sight happening clear, that's fine. This line of sight's happening here. I'm going to put another crate here. Kind of clog this up some. Let me get another crate drawn this way. So that's good enough for that. Now what you want to do now is take that fine line weight, and we'll pull this up here so you can see this a little bit better. You want to take that fine line weight, and what I do for a crate, I'll show you up close. Whoops! I'll show you up close with this. What we like to do crates up close, because it's kind of hard to see so far away, right? So on the barrels you got a circle, and on the crates you got a square, right? This marker's dying on me. Let's use this other one. So on a crate, you know, they got like a little 1x4s, and then it's like little slats underneath it. So you can kind of do that, and if you want to put a little articulation for a little drop shadow, you can do that, whatever you want to do. On a barrel, it's kind of the same thing. You've got like an inner ring like this, and then they always imply like there's whiskey barrel type of wood happening. And when we get done drawing those, what we're going to do at the end is we're going to put big, strong drop shadows just on two faces at the very, very end, like this, to make them feel anchored in the environment, right? I just wanted to draw that for you kind of up close just so you can see what we're talking about, because it'd be hard to see on this thing from where it's located. Let's get this out of the way. So we're just going to use our fine tip one for this one. So we're just going to draw the squares on the little boxes real loose, really quickly. We don't care about super accuracy here. No player is going to say, wait a minute, that box is drawn kind of funny. We're just implying that these are crates. Really loose. And on the barrel, I'm actually going to draw another circle inside, try to keep it to the outer edge as best I can. Almost done drawing those. If you're not accurate, then don't worry about it. This is good practice. And then when you draw the hash marks for the wood, make sure it goes the right direction for the crates, make it parallel. You can pull them towards you or draw them directly away from you. Sometimes I like to pull them towards me, sometimes I like to do them a little further away. I'm going to make this one go this direction. I don't want them always to go the same direction. I'm going to do this one the other direction. And I do the same thing for the barrels. So sometimes I'll make them go this way. Sometimes the wood's going that way. Vary it, because you want to have a sense of, like, people just set it down. They weren't paying attention to what direction the wood grain on the whiskey barrel or barrel of ale or the explosive green crap or whatever the devil it is this baddie is in here, Halid. Okay, great. So that's good enough for that junk. So now let's go ahead and do some drop shadows. So this is really bold. Some people don't like to do this. I like to do it. It helps anchor things. So what I'm going to do, here's a light coming in from this way. That means everything's going to have shadows. I'm not going to take in consideration any form of torches or anything like that. You can do that on a marker board with the clear thing later. So what I'm going to do is to do a simple drop shadow just like I did on the marker board. So I'm actually going to do it like this. Every edge facing away. That one doesn't have stuff on it. Let's get that one done real quick. Every edge that's away from the cave mouth, we're going to get a little bit of dark line on those. Now, if you're an actual architect, you're laughing because you know what I'm doing is super dirty and fast, not presentation quality. This is for D&D. There's no client. Okay, that's pretty good. Make sure it's not sticking out too funny. That just gives it a little bit of anchoring. Now, you wouldn't do that for the big tree. This is just for stuff that's really, really, really low to the ground. You just want it to feel anchored to the ground plane. You don't want it to feel like it's floating in the air. Now, if you really want to go back in there and draw like little piles of junk and stuff like that, go ahead and do that if you want to. It's just put little squares, funny little polygonal shapes in there. It looks like there's junk. But now, if someone's playing the game, those little pieces of junk that you draw in there help someone determine that if I'm playing my miniature, well, I don't have any minis with me, I just have some tokens. These guys are too big. Let's say a bugbear. Let's use a bugbear. You can tell this is where you can move through. So moving through here, or moving through here, not through this, you have to climb over this, or going out this way, or being on this upper platform and jumping down, moving through the cave, to give you a sense of scale. These are bugbears, so they're pretty big. All right, cool. Now, the very last step, we're almost finished, is we need to erase stuff off of here without breaking and destroying everything. So usually what I like to do is I like to untape it first, hold everything down, and peel the tape away from the edge. And we're going to do one more trick here, and then we're done. If you made it this long, you deserve some kind of brownie point. So as you can see, we got this guidelines everywhere, right? Everything's pretty much dry. What we want to do is just take this eraser, and we're going to get some of these, I'm holding the paper still, and I'm just going to get some of these guidelines off of here. I don't want it to be covered with all this graphite everywhere. Whoops, that's what you have to be careful of. You don't want to tear it. So I'm trying to hold it really tight between my fingers here and get this off. We got that center line we did earlier. That makes it look unnatural. Hopefully this isn't shaking the camera too much. Here's this other center line. Get rid of that. If you had an electric eraser, you'd go boot. We're doing this the 1950s method. Not much longer. Get some of these guidelines out of here. Not all of them, just the ones that are really annoying me. You get the point though. So let's just stop that there. Now when you get the thing done, there's too many guidelines here. I'm sorry, I gotta get rid of these. These are driving me batty. When you get all that done, you haven't torn it in half. If you do tear it in half, use clear tape and tape it back together on the back. Get that all done. You can go ahead and you're done with it, right? You don't need to do anything else. If you want to take a photograph of it for your phone to play electronically, you can do that. If you want to go back and add more details, look at how someone else does digital maps and add little details. It's up to you. How much craftsmanship you want to put into your map is completely up to you. And I'm actually talking you through this. I'm not doing this as fast as I would normally. I'd actually do this about 3 times faster. Those will create as a spear impact point. All right. So the one last thing you can do, let's get all the junk off of here. Don't forget to vacuum your shop. You can flip this over to the back if you want to. Get your big marker and parallel with the other line that's on the front surface. You need to be able to spin it around. That's why you need to do it this way. You can put another line. Make sure there's no gaps. It's like mowing the lawn. Make sure one line is on top of the next line. This will add a little bit more thickness to the outside of the cave lines. Make it feel a little deeper and stronger. That's where you might want to take your Death Mama marker and do it. If you don't have a Death Mama marker, you may want to do it like this. You don't even need to do this. I'm just doing this because I want to feel cooler. You're not playing Pathfinder to that being cool, man. Why would you not want to do that? Doesn't make any sense. All right, so you get the basic idea of that. And now, once you've drawn this once, you have it forever. If you ever need to do a one-shot, let it dry first before you flip it over. If you ever need to do a one-shot or something like that, you got this cool map. And make sure that dries good. And if you need to do anything else to it, you can. You can always tape it down your battlefield. Put your baddies on the map. Use your glass board if you want to. If you want to be a real demon, you can, you know, put a huge treasure pile. And you can put this to get rid of the side camera. you know, you have a huge treasure pile, a bunch of swords and shields, and an upper platform, and then you've got your guys in your battle, and your players are deciding which way they come through here, come through there, and all that kind of stuff adds to the combat, adds to the flair. So if you're going to fight this bad guy in this dungeon in Fall of Plaguestone, this is his hideout. He's got these cool traps set. You know, you might have a situation when you're playing the dungeon where you want someone to just like, as you're coming forward and the Halley guy is charging forward to attack you, you can see pretty clearly on the ground that there's a thin little wire. It seems to be kind of stretched all the way across like this. Or you may say someone may roll a perception check, and you find this wire. You could draw it on here, or this trap could have been sprung, and you draw a little, you know, spear stuck on the wall. So that's where that kind of stuff comes in handy. Or you may decide that there's going to be torches here, and there's smoke billowing out. You know, and this thing is being illuminated by torchlight. Or there's a torch over here. The smoke is coming out this way. Or there's a hazy fog over this. Or someone's going to cast fireball. Boom. All right. Hope you have fun. Let's go back to our page here. All right, cool. That's it. So, in summary, Fall of Plaguestone, good module, very narrative strong, very linear, very talk to people, investigative. Sleepy Hollow meets kind of a Name of the Rose murder mystery kind of vibe with some natural elements to it. Great for levels 1 through 4. Good to introduce new people how to play the game who like movies, who like narrative elements, who like to engage in conversations. Not a huge hack and slash type thing, but it eventually later on does have cool Village of Hamlet, moat house type keep attacks, has interesting enemies. You know, you meet all these human characters with these human problems. You have these really interesting enemies happening later on. It's really good. It's really good little adventure path, adventure to do. It has some unique monsters in it that are very cool, very creepy. The villain's easy to identify. It's thematically cohesive, and I hope you had fun with it. So if you find yourself in a pinch and you want to decide, well, I want to get this, do I want to play it? I'm going to buy it. It's got all these maps. What am I going to do with these maps? Are you going to Xerox them and stick them on a paper? If you want to learn how to draw those kind of things, you get the flip map. You don't have everything drawn. You know, take a chance about, you know what, I might want to try this method here. And if you ever want to ask me a question, I'd be happy to tell you. You can draw your own maps just on plexiglass on the fly or on your own battle map, which you may already do. Or you want to grab yourself a couple of pens and draw on tracing paper and end up having your own cool maps just like that. All right, so we're going to leave it at that. Hope you had fun with this longer episode than normal. And if you have any questions or comments, let me know. And we'll talk to you later. See ya.